My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Game of Thrones Season 5. And this review will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But anyways, the first time I watched this show, I watched Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and Season 4. I never watched past Season 4 though. So this was a first time watch for me, and I had no idea what to expect. I know everybody hates Season 8, I hear Season 7 is bad, but Season 5 and 6, there doesn't seem to be a clear consensus on them. Some people think they're very underrated and very good seasons of television, while other people say they're the start of the downward trajectory, so I was very curious to see where I would land on it, and after watching Season 5, I have to say, this was a terrible season of television. I absolutely hated it, and it's easily, by far, the worst season of the show so far. And if it gets worse from here, well then, we're in trouble. But I guess you guys have already experienced that. Well, I'm about to, so 4 amazing seasons though isn't bad. But I knew this season wasn't going to be as good from the very first scene. This flashback of Cersei as a little girl just didn't work for me in any way. She gets told her future by a witch, and she pretty much just re-establishes that she's going to have conflict with Marjorie Tyrell, and it's like, we already know this, and it doesn't give you any more information, so it's like, what's the point of this scene? Apparently in the book, the witch gives more information, so maybe that would have given this some sort of purpose, but it's absolutely lacking here. So I'm like, okay, not the best start, but we're back in present day. Let's see where we go from there. And then the conversation between Jaime and Cersei while they're mourning their father is just atrocious. It wasn't subtle at all. There wasn't an ounce of nuance. It's just like, who wrote this? It felt so over the top. Oh, did you let my monster brother go? And I didn't like it, and the dip in quality became apparent to me from that point on. And those are the very first 2 scenes. So, yeah, like, that's not good. And to be fair, this plot at King's Landing definitely had an uphill battle. I mean, the 2 best characters in Tyrion and Tywin are now gone. Joffrey, a character you love to hate, is missing. So it's not like there was no challenge here at all, but the potential was. You've already established this conflict between Cersei and the Tyrells, and with the Lannisters being outmatched in their own palace, and Tormund going towards the Tyrells, you could have had a really great plot, but just none of it worked for me. They kept re-establishing the conflict between Cersei and Marjorie, and it just feels like a case of been there, done that. Is anything going to happen? And then Tormund just isn't an interesting character. He's a much better person than Joffrey, but he just does nothing for me. And I think the worst part of this King's Landing plot is everything regarding the High Sparrow. It just comes out of nowhere, and it just doesn't work, and it's all incredibly boring stuff. And it doesn't work for me as well, because the whole point of this show is that everybody wants the Iron Throne. It is seen as the highest possible power. So the fact that the High Sparrow goes above the Queen, goes above Cersei, goes above the King, some of that is now lost. Like, to be fair, Tywin kind of had the most power before, but not officially. And here it's officially, and just, it didn't work for me. And then the whole plot with Marjorie's brother getting locked up, and then Marjorie getting locked up, and then Cersei getting locked up. It just felt like they were like, okay guys, we need some conflict here. And the writers were just like, lock him up. Brilliant. What do we do now? Lock her up. Okay, that's good, but what do we do now? I've got it. Lock her up as well. We nailed it, guys. And it's just, none of it worked. It felt so contrived and I really hated it. And then that walk of shame with Cersei at the end, I just found to be incredibly stupid. Like, yeah, it really didn't work for me. And I didn't even mention that Jaime's not really in that plot. They had no idea what to have him to do this season. So they give him and Bronn this random quest, and it's just the biggest waste of time on the planet. I had zero investment in this story, and Cersei's daughter was just never an established character. And I really hated here how terribly Jaime spoke of Tyrion. Like, what I love about Jaime's character is that he starts off and you think awful things about him, but then he shows promise and potential, and he doesn't quite redeem himself, but he's on the pathway to that. Cersei keeps corrupting him, but he's on that pathway. And I really love the relationship between Jaime and Tyrion here. And just for Jaime to speak so poorly of Tyrion really didn't sit right with me. It felt like a regression of his character, and maybe he could just be hiding his real feelings for Tyrion. He doesn't want to risk it. But I felt like with a character like Bronn, he could have opened up and it would have worked for what they've been going for with his character. I also hate the poison that affects Bronn, that when he sees the one girl naked and he gets aroused, it starts killing him. That was really stupid. I do like the one scene where Jaime's in a sword fight and he catches the sword with his golden hand. That was a cool moment. But anyways, bunch of stuff happens. You think something, some sort of conflict might arise, and then they just all allowed to leave. And that's really it. And then on the boat back, Jaime tells his niece that he's actually her dad. And I despise this scene. It might be the worst scene in this entire show so far because it's trying to be this like pure, heartfelt moment. But like, it's not a good thing. Like, the fact that her mom and uncle are really mom and dad is messed up. It is severely messed up. And she's glad to discover this? Like, is this show taking a pro-incest stance here? Because that's the way it comes across to me, and I really, really hate that. It's quite frankly disgusting. And then because they have a feel-good moment, they had to kill off the niece due to some poison lipstick or whatever, and it was just such a dumb way to go. I felt nothing when it happened. And it's just like, why would the other people do it like that? Don't they have the prince with them? They can easily just hold him ransom or kill him. They now risk war. It was just so stupid. I really despised it. And then we've got everything with Winterfell, which didn't really start off on the best footing for me either. Like, the Sansa and Littlefinger writing was very questionable. And Brienne sees Sansa and she goes up to her, and Sansa doesn't trust her because I saw you bow to the king. Like, that's it? You, more than anyone else, should understand the position Brienne would be in. So, I really hated that. And then there's this whole plot of Sansa getting married to Ramsay, and I absolutely despise this decision. It's a total regression of the character. Sansa was a kid in season 1, so helplessly in love with Joffrey. But then the reality of this world and of who he is comes crashing down on her, and she's a victim for seasons 2 and 3. She gets beaten, she gets humiliated. And she doesn't give up, she keeps going. And then in season 4, she finds a way out and she gains confidence. She starts to understand how this game is played better. And she re-emerges as this strong, confident, slightly manipulative, but really intelligent woman. And for her to go back to who she was, no, I hated it. I know there's that scene between her and Ramsey at the end of one of the episodes that was largely controversial. And I hate that scene because, like, it's meant to be an uncomfortable scene, but what I really hate about it is that you've taken this character and just thrown her back into being the victim again, even though she outgrew that. That's what I hate about it. Like, if she married Ramsey and then she stood up for herself and she didn't take any of that shit, that'd be much better. That would show growth. And it would have her relationship with Ramsey to compare it to her relationship with Joffrey to show how much she's grown. But instead, it's more of the same, so I absolutely hate that. And then Ramsey also likes this other girl named Miranda, who isn't really well developed at all. And anyways, so Sansa's stuck in her tower. It's made out to be a Rapunzel situation where she's locked in there, she's not allowed to leave, she has to try to get Greyjoy to light a candle for her. But then, in the last episode, she just walks out and lights the candle. Like, unless I missed something very important, what was once an obstacle, what was once the obstacle, is now gone. So I hated that. And of course, right when she lights the candle is the exact second that Brienne looks away. And I just didn't buy that for a second. If you're going to do that, the events have to be so interconnected that you buy into the tension and so it doesn't feel contrived. Unfortunately, this doesn't do it, so it does feel contrived. And then Sansa and Miranda get into it, and Greyjoy saves the day and throws Miranda off the wall, and she falls to her death. And then Sansa and Greyjoy go out the other way, jumping from the exact same distance. Why would you do that? You just watch someone fall to their death from that height, and you go ahead and do the same thing? Like, I assume they're not dead. In fact, I know they're not dead. If they did die, that would be the most anticlimactic death ever. But it's like, why would they do that? Like, couldn't they have grabbed a rope and at least climbed down or something like that? It's just a beyond stupid move. And it really also ticks me off because it's just like, so that's the note you end on with these characters for this season. That's the ending? Like, are you trying to make us think that they're dead or what? The note that those two characters end on for this season is that they jumped and that's it. Like, why not show them get to safety or whatever? So, I didn't like that. What I did like, though, was the character stuff involving Greyjoy, or Reek, whatever you want to call him. But, I don't mean to dead name him. But I do like the fact that there's parts of his past coming back to him and how that really conflicts him. You know, they don't go too overboard with it, but I do like the way it was handled for the most part. And then everything with Stannis, just character assassination. You know, he was never a perfect character, but you still rooted for him. And I'm just going to skip to the end of this season because I really despise what they did to him. But the slightest inconvenience. Like, first of all, how did Ramsay even destroy his supplies? And that didn't make sense to me. But the slightest of inconvenience. Some destroyed supplies, some bad weather, immediately causes him to go to the farthest extreme and he sacrifices his daughter? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, I couldn't comprehend what I was watching when that was going down. I'm like, do you actually expect me to buy into this? Like, no, like, I just can't believe they went to that level and not in a good way. And he just kills his daughter. Like, I just don't buy that he would do that. It's so out of character and it's so evil and messed up. And it's like this character going from 0 to 100 on how evil he is just like that. No, absolutely not. And at least the scene where she dies might have some sort of impact if the men had verbal objections to it. But everyone was just silent. And if you felt the chaos and people disagreeing with him a bit more, then at least that scene would have impact. But it was just lacking in every sense. And then they just wake up and half the army's gone or whatever, and he still marches his army into battle despite being desperately outnumbered. It's just pathetic. And they build up to this big fight between Stannis' army and the Bolton's army, and you're ready for the fight to go down, and you don't even get that. What the hell? Like, they just didn't show it. So by the time Stannis died, I just didn't care. 3 seasons of build-up, 3 seasons of character development, destroyed it just like that. Unbelievable. Then you've got Brienne's storyline, and she's the one that kills Stannis, and besides that, she just kind of chills and watches for Rapunzel to light the lights for her birthday, and that's pretty much it. Tangled reference, but she's really waiting for Sansa, just in case that wasn't clear. And then we've got Arya, which I have to make the obvious joke, but lots of blackface in this season. But one thing I do like with Arya this season is that while she's getting trained, she gets slapped if she's lying, and there's a point where she says she left the Hound to suffer, and she gets slapped. So I like the fact that they don't quite say why she left the Hound there. There's a bit of there's a bit of moral gray areas out that I really like. But for the most part, I hated this storyline. I thought it was so incredibly boring. I love Arya as a character, and watching her being trained to be this amazing warrior should have been great, compelling stuff, but it just did nothing for me. I do like the one scene where she gets her revenge, but that's about it. And we didn't need so much of that one episode of her following him around. And I just hate the lore that's introduced here of these faceless men, the nobodies, and it isn't consistent with season 2 for me. Like, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, but Jaqen didn't want to die. Arya lists his name as the next name to die, and he was very disturbed by that. Because he didn't want to die. But now he's not even a person, apparently, and I really hate that. You know, if the person exists, then there's some sort of emotional foundation, but now it's just nothing. It's just Arya getting connected to nobody. No character, no depth, just nobody. I understand everything perfectly, I just really hate it. And Arya going blind at the end of the storyline is just absurd, so I hated that. And then we got the Tyrion stuff, and when him and Varys start talking, I was just like, wow, this dialogue is really bad. And then Tyrion gets kidnapped by Joel, and then they fight some stone creatures, and then they get captured into slavery, and then it's just a bunch of then this happens, and then this happens. You gotta drag it out. And Joel wants to see the Queen, and this is another character who I feel like was assassinated. He always loved the Queen and cared for her, but they just make him so pathetic here. For a man with so much honor, none of it's on display. And he even doesn't really get to talk to the Queen. He puts in all this work and just nothing. She accepts Tyrion to help her, but she just sends Joel away. And then he has to win a fight to gain her attention, and it just felt very repetitive for him really fast. And I just wonder why we even needed Joel and Tyrion together. Like, couldn't Tyrion still just make his way to the Queen, and then Joel's in the arena? Like, there you go. You save a lot of time, you still hit the needed plot beats, that's it. Like, Tyrion was on his way to see her regardless, but I do like the scene where he meets Daenerys. It kind of feels like a crossover episode. Like, we've spent so much time with these characters, but to see them interact, it's just, I don't know, it's like when I was a kid and I watched Zack and Cody interact with Hannah Montana. Like, what's this? A crossover episode? BoJack reference, but no, the scene where Tyrion meets Daenerys is actually a really well-written moment. And I do think there's some great stuff in the Daenerys plot. Some terrible stuff, but some great stuff too. She's trying really hard to be this just warrior. This just queen. But she keeps getting more and more pushback and having to do more and more desperate acts. I did hate how they killed Barristan. Like, a great warrior gets killed off just like that. And the gold-faced weirdos felt really generic, not properly developed. And they're just killing all these people at the arena, and this should have some sort of weight to it, but it just feels lacking in every sense. And the Unsullied in Season 3 were built up to be these amazing warriors. They feel no pain, they're trained, they're amazing warriors. Where are those amazing warriors? Like, they feel completely useless, and they just get killed off left, right, and center. Like, I know it's like the Stormtrooper effect, you have to show them getting killed, but the Stormtroopers weren't set up to be these amazing warriors, the Unsullied War. But then anyways, a dragon comes in and saves the day, and a dragon's meant to be like a huge deal, but then just a few arrows to the dragon and it looks like he's going to die, and it's just like, that's it? Like, I know they want to create tension, but you've kind of made the dragons look weak and pathetic. But anyways, then she goes ahead and tries to fly it. Clearly, she needed to watch How to Train Your Dragon a few more times, but she did not bad for her first time. She's no hiccup, that's for sure. And it's supposed to be this really magical moment, but I'm going to be honest, the bad CGI here, the obvious green screen just took me out of it. And then Tyrion and Joel and everyone else was just left in the arena where there's still a bunch of those golden-faced weirdos left, and the next time we see them, they're safe. Like, what happened? She just left them there to die pretty much, and somehow they get out okay, all those gold-faced weirdos are taken care of, and that's it. And now they set up a plot where they have to find her next season, and I really hate how they're setting that up, and there's some Dothraki, and I don't care, and some really great stuff in the first half of this season, but the second half starts to lose me. What's great consistently, though, is the Night Watch plot. This stuff is still great. I love watching Jon get elected and gaining more respect, and I love that one scene in the very first episode where he kills the wildling before he could really suffer. That was a great moment. And I loved when that one guy refused his orders. He had him executed and he did it himself. That was a great moment, and he's just trying his best to be a good leader, and I like his scenes with Stannis. And then we get to this one episode called Hardhome, and this episode was great. The last 20 minutes of it was just excellent. It was tense, it was thrilling. We've heard about the White Walkers this entire show. We've seen them here and there, just glimpses, but here we see the full force of them. And we know they're not a force to be reckoned with. That this battle won't be an easy one. And that scene where they're on the boats and they just barely got away, and then you see all the dead wildlings just suddenly rise up as an army of the White Walkers now. I got chills. Best moment of this season. Hands down, phenomenal stuff though. And then the season ends with Jon's death, and I'm a bit mixed on it, because here's the thing. I know he comes back next season. I'm perfectly aware of that. So, I'm just not a fan of when you kill off characters and then bring them back. Because you wanted the weight of their death in this show, but you're not willing to dedicate yourself to it. Now, unless him coming back is done in a way that has severe consequences that last throughout the rest of this show for this character, then maybe they can make it work, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Like, the way he dies makes perfect sense. People felt like he wasn't loyal to the Night Watch, that his priorities were the wildlings, and it's a great progression of this character and this story, so it makes perfect sense. But also, he just comes back next season, and I'm also going to say this. Robb and Kat and Talisa dying, great. Tyrion dying, great. Joffrey dying, great. Ned dying, great. Jon Snow dying, not great, and here's why. The Night Watch isn't always the best story, and what makes it good, what makes it compelling, what makes it feel human is the character of Jon Snow. Without him, this plot would be a severe bore. When you lose the other characters, you still got other great characters to focus on, but that's not the case here. I like Sam, I like Gimli, I like the witch person, but they're not the main character. So, yes, it would have weight, but it would have been a bad mistake in the long run of things. So yes, and then we get to the stuff with Bran, and honestly, I haven't really been the nicest about the Bran storyline, but here it was his best stuff. Some really amazing work here. The most I was compelled by the Bran storyline. Just for the record, it actually did take me a little bit to realize just, wait a second, we haven't seen Bran this season. Awesome. And there is one more thing I want to notice before I get to the cast, and it's the fact that we get the scene of Jaime chilling with the Sand People, not the ones from Star Wars, but whatever they're called. And he's just like, oh, just enjoying his time with them. He even says out loud he's waiting to be executed. And we get a scene just like that with Tyrion and Daenerys. And just the fact that we get two scenes that kind of feel and look the exact same just shows a bit of laziness, if you ask me. So the story here was not great. I liked the Jon Snow stuff, I liked some of the Daenerys stuff, but everything else just felt like a complete destruction of what's been built up to. Some character assassinations, some real regression, and just some really boring, lacking stuff. And the cast here, I also don't think gives their best work. Now, Kate Harington is the standout. He's still great here, and Alfie Allen is the other standout. This guy, I never hear people talk about him, but they really should. He's great. Gwendolyn Christie, fine, I guess. Sophie Turner, fine, I guess. Macy Williams, fine, I guess. They don't really have a ton to work with. You've got Tom Welashuk, yes, Draken. I pronounce his name perfectly. Natalie Domo, fine. Dean Charles Chapman, fine. John Bradley, fine. Nicholas Coster-Waldau, fine. Nina Headley, fine. Peter Dinklage, fine. Jerome Flynn, fine. Aidan Gillen, fine. Stephen Dillon, fine. Kiris Van Houten, fine. Connor's Hale, fine. Ian Glenn, fine. Emilia Clarke, actually really good. She's a character that internalizes everything, and you definitely get that sense with her. And yeah, like, the cast can only do so much when they're given such weak material to work with. Some are able to rise above it, but for the most part they can't. Like the guy who plays Jaime, Nicholas Coster-Waldau, he's a very talented actor. Same with Peter Dinklage, but when you're not given the best material, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you just can't rise above it. And they have great potential, they're great actors, but this isn't their best work. I also don't think this is the best directed season either. Like I said, I've got plenty of issues with the script, but I think some of the CGI is kind of bad here. Now, what doesn't look bad is the White Walkers. I love the design of them. They look great. The music is still good by Ramin Djawadi, but I will also say that no single piece of music stood out to me compared to the previous seasons. It's still good, but not great. So, yeah, I hated this season. I thought it was terrible. I hated the character assassination of Stannis. I hate how you gave Arya, one of my favorite characters, the most boring plot, just filled with nonsense. I hated how they regressed Sansa. I hate how they clearly have no idea what to do with Cersei, and they just gave her this absurd, over-the-top, boring plot. I hated how they clearly didn't know what to do with Jaime and Bronn. I hated how they clearly didn't know what to do with Joel, and they turned an honorable man into a pathetic one. I hated how Tyrion is just given not much to work with, and not given the best dialogue to work with either. I hated the fact that Daenerys' plot and where it's leading to next season, that has me real worried. I do like the Night Watch stuff, like the first half of the Daenerys stuff, and I love the fact there's no Bran, but this is a terrible season. I've heard some people defend it, I've heard some people say it's good, I've heard some people say it's not that bad. I disagree with all of them. This is terrible. If it's gonna get worse, let's just get it over with. I'm gonna go ahead and give season 5 of Game of Thrones a 3 out of 10. Okay, did you watch Game of Thrones Season 5? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin